5 things I did as a feminist entering adulthood as now a non-feminist. 1, I constantly had a problem with authority in men in general. From a young age, I was constantly told that authority was given by men, whether that be in the form of a father, a god, a authority figure like the police. It was usually given by men, and I could see that. And instead of learning how to work within the constraints of that society and use it to my advantage in a healthy and good way, I instead wanted to burn the entire system down. I truly believe in this world, women are the antithesis of men, in that if a mass amount of men believe one thing or come to the conclusion about one thing, the girls and how they're raised are going to automatically become women that oppose or view that as wrong and that they could do it better.
It's called rebellion. Usually, and this is in the spirit of a lot of women, they embrace rebellion because they are going against the thing that they know is best for them, or that they may have been taught is best for them, but they want to explore, and so it's a natural inclination to want to see what else is out there. That's a lot of times why you see women that are in great relationships or in great situationships. I've done a review video recently, probably within the last couple days, of a woman that said that she wanted to leave her situation because she wanted to go and find herself, instead of holding it down and making sure that she was in the best space possible. And she said that the guy had taken care of everything and he was on top of stuff and he was a really great man, but she was miserable and she was crying. And I also recently seen a response video to it, and she tried to clean it up because a lot of people, including men and women, basically held her accountable and said, "You crazy, you need to get yourself together and you need to act like you got some sense, because if I was your man actually watching how you crashing out, I would be disgusted, and it's not that many good men out here, and so you in a great situation. Why are you crying? And why are you acting like something isn't, a problematic as far as your situation?" She then came back and said, "Well, can't we just have a moment?" Come on now. This woman was willing to throw everything away that had been given to her in order to take a chance on being for the streets. But again, it goes back to rebellion. And this is why feminism, in my opinion, is so dangerous, is because it goes against both cultural, traditional, and God-given norms of why we were created in the first place, to serve and to play our role. And that is the thing that then gives us the best possibility, the best situation. It makes us the most happy, but we have to suffer before we can then get to that other side. But sometimes you can't come back from that.
And that's obviously in large part due to our ego. And truly, the society that we have is led and styled and molded by so many women, but it is set up in a way that makes you just see the men as the oppressor. And it always goes back to blaming the men for damaging the woman in some way to make her act that way. Which brings me to number 2. As a woman, I was told all the time that I was the prize, and that no matter what I did, no matter how toxic it was, that I was the treasure that needed to be won, and it didn't matter what I did. This led me to make a lot of toxic decisions, and oftentimes my own mother would try to frame it in a way that even the most toxic behavior was only done because a man made me behave that way.
And I'm wondering, you just had to guess and come to the conclusion that maybe the mother was also a single mother, and she was broken in some way, and she took it out on the father, while at the same time basically having a child suffer for the decisions that she made. And so she basically framed it as that, you are the prize, which in turn translated to her to say, well, I can really do no wrong, and when I do wrong, it must be a man's fault.
I didn't want anybody to have any expectations of me, but I had a ton of expectations of everybody else. I wanted everybody to behave a certain way. I wanted everybody to follow a certain script that I had in my head. I wanted people to think the way I did, and I didn't understand why they couldn't, because obviously I could see things the right way. And honestly, I was defensive, I was very responsive, and I was very hate-filled and angry, but I thought everybody else were the hate-filled and angry ones. Thought I personally could do whatever I wanted, but I resented anybody else for doing what they wanted and thinking what they wanted to think. And I'm like, why? Why are you doing that? And I didn't understand why they couldn't just be the way I wanted them to be. 4, I stayed with men I didn't even really like, to specifically, just so I could avoid going home and just so I could avoid sleeping around and being a hoe, but I could still pretend to be a traditional little good girl. It allowed me to constantly be working on myself while getting help with my bills and while avoiding going home and having the safety net of my parents in any way.
So basically, she was using men as a feminist, which is what a lot of women do. They pretend like they really are independent, like they really want to be out there on their own, when in reality, if they really admitted it and they told you, they are using men in order for them to be able to come up, but they're using the cloak of feminism to try to justify their decisions and their behavior. It's so toxic.
This caused a ton of avoidable conflict, and I would say I didn't know what I was doing, but I honestly think the constant sadness and anxiety was the objective truth, striving to get out and show me that what I was doing was wrong, and I inherently knew it was wrong, but I continued to do it anyways to benefit myself. And I was just using the excuse that I was young and misguided and angry at the world to then blame others to do shitty things. 5, I got married as an atheist at 19 and immediately agreed to indiscretions the night of our marriage, and then used that as a way to open up the marriage and manipulate the situation to benefit myself yet again in life. And I was checked out. My dad asked if I could see myself spending forever with this dude, and I said for now, and I still married him anyway. And I thought I could get revenge on my ex-high school boyfriend. I thought I could still have a hoe mindset while playing traditional housewife, whatever. I was still working. I still made my own money and paid for my own shit, but it was still helpful. I still had help with my bills that he was obviously helping me with, and it made me look good.
Oh my God, this is crazy. But you know what? You will be surprised at how many women actually did this, does this, think like this. And this is also a reason why you see the divorce rate so high, in which women initiate 70 to 80% of all divorces because they got married and they never wanted to be there anyway, but they was using a guy that they didn't like to live the life that they wanted to live at the moment, thinking to themselves that eventually they'd be able to hit the streets again anyway. This is crazy, bro.
As soon as I did manipulate the situation enough to where he did open up the marriage, I immediately left him for being weak. And like, he was weak in a lot of ways and did a lot of shitty things too, but I saw that very early on and I used it to benefit myself and manipulate the situation and use his shittiness and toxic behavior as a way to justify my own shitty toxic behavior.
So a lot of women know what they getting themselves into before they get themselves into it, which is another reason why we say, you know who you picked, you know who it is that you was laying down with, you know who you decided to have children with. Let's stop acting like you didn't know that this situation was going to be exactly what it was, and why you were then putting yourself in a situation to be a single mother. You already know, and she's exposing so much of what y'all be doing, bro.
Toxic ass shit. And I was trying to fool myself into believing that just because he said something was okay, it was okay, even though I inherently knew that what I was doing was not okay. But because he said it was okay, I thought it was okay. Oh, and P.S., I did not take anything in that divorce, not one single penny. Anything that was bought within the year that we stayed married, I gave back to him. It took me realizing that I was the problem, and I couldn't blame a man for the things that I was doing. I have to be accountable for the power that I do have. And a lot of it is very underhanded power that prey on weak men and use them to my advantage, which inherently is not good for society. That breeds more toxic men and can be very disastrous in a lot of ways. All this to say, I was a fool in so many ways. I did a lot of shitty things, and it took me really self-evaluating to realize the mistakes that I was making so I didn't make them again. And it took a man to really set me into my place when I did get into a relationship with him and call me out on the bad toxic behavior when it happened. And now I am in a very successful, happy, healthy relationship that I couldn't ever dream of getting.
I wonder how much of this she was like, now that she's considering herself, I guess, not a feminist, is directly tied to the fact that she is now in a more comfortable situation. And so now she's able to reflect and be honest because she was able to bounce back from the situation that she was in. I don't know. Let me know what y'all think inside of the comments. Make sure y'all tap into the Patreon. Link is in the description. T Chanley, 40% off your first order, 20% off for life. I love you. I appreciate you. I'm going to holler at you guys later.